Some facts, Ben. Some statistics that I'm just going to run by you on one young Bo Bichette. With doubles in 9 consecutive games, he has the longest double streak in MLB history. He also has an MLB record with 13 extra base hits in his first 11 career games. He's the first rookie with an extra base hit in 9 straight games since someone I've never heard of called Ted Williams. Some guy, I don't know, probably an average dude. Back in 1939, Teddy did that. And Bo Bichette has set Blue Jays franchise records with 20 hits in his first 11 career games, an 11-game hit streak to begin his career, and a 13-16 OPS over his first 11 games.
Pretty crazy. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And hard to imagine that his debut could have gone any better from an offensive standpoint. And it's been fun to watch Bichette because we knew that the potential was there, but seeing it at this level is a lot of fun to watch.
And even if he wasn't putting up these numbers, I would still greatly enjoy seeing him take like monstrous cuts at the first pitch that he sees and like nearly toppling over and falling. Like all the things I've seen him do in the minors for a while, but now he's doing them at Rogers Center in front of like however many people were there last night, like a pretty good crowd, and he's tearing around the bases, his batting helmet's flying off, and it's got the hair flowing. Like just even if these numbers and these like records weren't falling, still just a really fun player to watch.
So fun to watch. Yeah, I think that of all the moments that I appreciated during his home debut against the Yankees, probably the swing and miss that preceded that massive homer off the facing of the third deck would rank pretty high up there because it just goes to show like he is not here to mess around. He is here to swing really hard. And if he misses, he misses. And if he connects, it's going to go off the third deck. So, I mean, that's a encouraging sign for those of us who like to watch entertaining baseball. And so far, it's also been producing results. So that's a nice combination for the Jays.
Yeah, I feel like that's like my ethos as like an analyst of baseball. It's like, just entertain me. Right. Just make it fun. Like, I don't care about any of this other stuff. Like, just give us something fun to watch because baseball so often like moves in the area of not fun. So like if somebody in baseball gets really upset about the way Bo Bichette's playing right now and decides to throw at him, I would say that's not fun.
Yeah.
But that's almost something that like we maybe should expect to happen at some point.
It wouldn't be surprising.
Right?
Like, it was funny, even the other night after Bichette hit that home run in his first game at Rogers Center, the topic came up of, what were you thinking between those two swings? The one where he swung on miss and the one where he connected on the homer. And he made the point that he's well aware of the kind of resistance to rookies swinging hard. And he's like, yeah, I know, like rookies, some people don't like it when rookies swing hard. I'm like, what? Like, how else are you going to hit home runs if you don't swing hard? Like, it actually makes so little sense that you wouldn't be able to swing hard when the object of the game is to hit the ball far, ideally over the wall. You're not going to be able to do that if you're not swinging hard. So it just doesn't make sense. But he's right. Like, it's not like he's coming up with something that doesn't exist. This is an actual thing.
Oh, absolutely. Like, well, didn't Bryce Harper get hit in his first ever plate appearance?
Cole Hamels plunked him.
Right?
Yep.
Welcome to the league. Like, what is that?
Yeah,
right?
Crazy.
Because he played hard in the minors, right?
Yeah.
And because he was, he had the eye black on his face, and because he played with flair and he bat flipped and he pimped home runs. Good.
Yeah.
Right? Like the things that baseball players get like aggrieved by, like the celebrations or whatever, or like some of the outward like show of emotion that like bothers crusty old baseball players is like so mild and boring if it occurred in the NBA.
Right.
Or if it occurred in the NFL.
Oh yeah.
Or if it occurred in an actual fun sport. It's like it's not on highlights. It's just another guy doing another thing.
Right. And I mean, with Bichette in particular, that home run that he hit at Rogers Center, he did like a little bat drop where he kind of releases the bat very gently to the ground.
Bat flips played out. It's about the bat drop now.
But even that, like that's notable in baseball that you're doing a bat drop and you're not just tossing it to the ground. So I mean, that's that goes to show like how low the bar is for potentially irritating your opponent. But it's fun. I mean, it's just to see Bichette doing this in his first week in the majors tells you that there's more in there. Like if he's an actual all-star or he's becoming a 4 or 5 win player like we think he potentially could be, then or he's on that pace already.
He's a 1-win player after less than a dozen games.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Seriously,
is he actually
0.9 wins above replacement after 11 games?
Yeah, so he's on like a 5-win pace this year. But even if he finishes this year with 2 or 3 WAR, that's an incredible rookie season. Not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but this is a player clearly who has a lot of personality and is not going to be afraid to show it.
Two things about that. One, like, how else would you want a young player to play? Of course you want them to play hard, right? Like, like coaches talk about, like, failing hard, right? Like, if you're going to fail, if you're going to make a mistake, do it aggressively, right? Like, do it, like, at top speed, doing it trying to make a big play. And that's what Bo Bichette's doing. Like, when you see those massive swings where he, like, falls over, or when you see him, like, attack a ball and maybe bobble it or something, like, yeah, like, he is trying to be aggressive and to make a big play. That's what you want to see from young players. The second part is this isn't going to continue. Like, he is not going to be a 5-win player over the next 2 months. Like the pace that he is on, the torrid pace, it's been fantastic. I'm not trying to take anything away from it. It's been amazing to watch. It's been exhilarating to watch. It's going to turn. His batting average on balls in play is close to 500. Like half the balls he's put in play have gone for hits. Even if he keeps, shooting lasers all over the field, at some point he's going to hit it right at the shortstop. Or, as teams get a better idea of his tendencies, or as they get a better idea of how to pitch him, he's going to start hitting them into, where defenders are positioned. Clubs are gonna, start looking at his video and start looking at his swing and try to find holes, and they're gonna find ways to exploit them. They haven't figured it out yet, but just at the rate that he is swinging, and at the rate that he's also swinging at pitches that are outside the strike zone, this thing is clearly going to turn. And I even think he's aware of that. Of course, like talking to him yesterday before the game, like he was, because we were talking about some of his defensive misplays, and he was like, yeah, I went through a bit of a tough stretch in the field over a few games. I'm sure it's going to happen offensively as well. So he's aware, like, this thing is going to turn. And I take no joy in saying that, like, there's probably like an 0 for 12 skid coming at some point. Baseball has a funny way of evening things out. I think you just enjoy this hot streak while it lasts.
Yeah, without a doubt. There will be a cold streak to kind of counterbalance that. And I think his defense will improve. We've seen him look just, I don't know, rusty's not the right word, or shaky's not the right word, but he's just kind of looked like it's bounced off his glove. He just hasn't. The speed of the game seems to have maybe surprised him a little bit.
It's a different clock in the majors,
yeah,
right?
And I think that's part of it. We saw that with Vlad's throws at times, where Vladdy was just taking it too easy and not releasing the ball to first base fast enough. And I think with Bo, we've seen it more that the ball is kind of reaching him at shortstop more quickly than he seems to be expecting it. Well, but he'll adjust.
You think about, 300 minor league games that he's played, or whatever, 350, like, so he got used to one speed and one clock, right? And bats coming off the balls at a certain pace, and, runners getting up the line at a certain pace. Well, now you're in the majors, where much more consistently bats come off balls with a higher exit velocity, and runners on average get up the line a lot faster than they do in the minors. So it's a different clock. Like, it changes. You have less time, and then as the ball's hit to you, you start thinking, oh, I have less time. And then you speed up, and then you start thinking about the throw before the ball's in your glove, and clank, right? So I think that's why you have seen some of those errors. But it's an adjustment period, right? Like, you're going to hear Mark Shapiro say a lot, and we'll get to his comments later, that, Adrian Beltre in his first year transitioning to the big leagues led the league in errors. Like, we've seen a lot of guys go through this. I think Bo Bichette has all the tools needed to be a good shortstop at the major league level. I just think that over the next couple months, you're going to continue to see this adjustment process play out as he gets acclimated.
Yeah, and it's amazing how quickly Bichette has showed us that those tools exist, because it's only taken, 10 games, something like that, for him to show, yep, he's got the power, that'll play. He's got the bat-to-ball skills. He's not striking out a ton. I mean, yeah, he's got the high BABIP, but it's not like he's swinging and missing through, a crazy amount of pitches, especially being a rookie and making offensive adjustments too, that seem to have been pretty seamless so far. So you've got that skill set. You've got clearly the arm, clearly the mobility at shortstop, and that's pretty much what you're looking for when you're thinking about a developing shortstop, someone who's still just 21 years old, going to make mistakes, but you can see why people in the industry are so excited about what Bo Bichette can do.
This is At the Letters, brought to you by the all-new 2019 Ford Ranger. You already know, but I had to say it. That's Ben Nicholson-Smith. I'm Arden Zwelling. Struck me watching the first game of that Yankees series. Like, there are moments now where, like, during a game, like if I'm working away or whatever, like whatever I'm doing, like when Bo Bichette comes up, like I'm stopping what I'm doing.
Right.
And I'm watching. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. comes up, I'm stopping what I'm doing. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. I'm watching, right? Like, this lineup is just a lot more fun to watch right now. And I don't care if the team wins or loses. Like, I just want to see interesting baseball, and I'm interested now. Whereas, perhaps in May it was a bit different, right? So I am, I think that as a fan, it must be cool to watch some of these kids play and to watch them take off. I would imagine that, like, if you're tuning in to watch this team every night, like, you are enjoying what you're seeing from at least the top half of this batting order.
Yeah, at least every second half inning, and we'll get to the pitching later. But, whenever the Blue Jays are up, you're never far away from a pretty intriguing batter, even if it's Teoscar Hernandez, who's been hitting well in the last month, or Brandon Drury, who's surprisingly hitting
Quietly.
well in the last month.
I would say quietly.
Quietly.
Well, yeah, like under the radar, having himself a very nice 30 days.
Perhaps unsustainably, who knows? But he's hitting well. So you do have some depth to this batting order that you didn't see before. So that does translate. It does make the team more watchable. And I don't know about you, but man, I was watching, again, going back to that first game against the Yankees in Rogers Center. It's the first game after the deadline, first game since Stroman was traded and Sanchez was traded, and since Bichette was up.
Yeah.
And man, it actually felt different in there. And maybe it's because there was a backpack giveaway, which always brings people in, but the crowd was big.
Yeah.
It was over 30,000 people. And you look around the stadium, and it just felt more full than empty, which has been a rarity this year. Might have actually been one of our over-unders. No, it was sellouts, not
Sellouts. I'm screwed. It's over.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it.
Although, you did win the Stroman one. So that's...
Did I?
Oh, yeah. That's in the
Okay,
books
so I
under
got one.
Arden Zwelling. So
Great.
that's a good one.
I get one every year.
But
Go ahead.
when it comes to the environment at Rogers Center, it did feel different. Like, we haven't seen that or felt that a lot. And we used to experience that every single night. Which wasn't that long ago, only 2016, that was the case every single night.
Yeah.
And now it's a rarity.
It wasn't that long ago, but it kind of was.
Kind of was.
Right? Like, because now, like, once this season's done, this will be the third losing season, like, after it. So it kind of has been a while. But, yeah, I do think that, like, as a fan, and, like, we'll get to, like, Shapiro stuff and all that stuff later, but, like, as a fan, like, I know there's a lot of discontent right now. There's a lot of people who are pretty upset right now and don't like that some of their favorite players have been traded, and I get it, right? Like, if you in 15 and 16 like filled your closet with jerseys and jerseys that said Sanchez and Stroman,
Goins,
Donaldson,
Colabello,
oh my god,
Hawkins,
Hawkins. So if you filled your closet with those, you love those players. Like, I understand, like, it's upsetting to see them go. You have an emotional attachment to them. You watch them have great moments. You watched Ryan Goins have you watch Chris Colabello come up with big hits, right? So just wait until Devin Travis is non-tendered this offseason. Like, just, like, that's finally the end of the 2015-16 like residue outrage, right? Of people who are still attached to these guys. His non-tender this offseason will be the end of it.
Yeah.
Pompey's off the roster. Who's left?
Smoke.
Right?
That's it.
Yeah, Smoke.
Tepera.
Yeah, to Paris. So, but I feel like Devin Travis, people have a really like tight. It's like it's Pompey-ish, right?
Yeah.
Like, the guy hasn't really, and no, I love Devin Travis,
Of
but
course.
like, hasn't played in a while, hasn't been good in a while.
Yeah, they have to cut him.
But fans have a very like strong attachment to him because they remember when he came up and he was Bo Bichette-ish, right? He not to this level, but when he first came up, he hit really, really well.
He always hit for those first couple of years.
Yeah.
Like, he had like a pretty solid 300 average, 780 OPS. Like, that was pretty good.
And it was like, hey, man, this is your second baseman of the future, and he's going to lock down that position, and we all know what happened. This is a weird sidebar tangent, but my point is, like, as a fan, like, you got two choices, right? Like, you can stay mad, and you can, like, be upset and bitter and, like, have this team bring you resentment, or you can get in on the ground floor of this core of young players, and you can watch them take their first steps in the big leagues. You can watch Bo Bichette's first dozen games and see how cool it is. You can watch Vladimir Guerrero Jr. go through, like, the parabola he's gone through, right? Where it's like he was, he came up and there's all the hype, and then you're like, things didn't go so well, and then he got really, really, really good, right? And now it's kind of leveling off a little bit again, but you can watch Kevin Biggio grow as a ball player. You can watch Danny Jansen learn behind the plate, put up some framing numbers, which if you look at like Fangraphs and the places that keep track of them are actually rather impressive.
Really good.
You can watch, Lourdes Gurriel Jr. break out. Like, you can get in on the ground floor of this thing. And look, I don't know if the Blue Jays are going to win in 2 years or 3 years. Like, none of us know if they're going to go to the postseason or, win a championship. But if they do, these are the players who are going to help them get there. And this is going to be the core of that team. You can say, hey, I remember when Bo Bichette debuted, man. Like, I remember watching, Kevin Biggio hit that, screaming home run into right at the Trop, right? Like, you can get in on the ground floor of this and watch it. Or you can just fill your life with negativity and bitterness and resentment.
And to the credit of our listeners, I think we know which option they've chosen.
That's the thing,
because they're
right?
listening to us in a 100-loss season. So thanks for sticking with us.
If you're listening to this, like,
Yeah.
you're a Blue Jays fan, right?
Yeah.
Like, a lot of like the people who are like pissing and moaning right now, they're not really baseball fans.
No.
They're not really Blue
It's
Jays
just
fans.
the sport that's on after the Raptors won and the Leafs are in the summer golf mode.
Exactly.
So.
Right? They're fans of winning.
Yeah.
They're fans of they just want to be a part of something.
Which is
right?
fine.
And you mentioned the Raptors, right? Like, look at that parade, right? Like, there's like 2 million people there.
Yeah.
How many of those people were like, living and breathing with the Raptors in January even?
Right.
How many of them know who Rafael Araujo is, right? Like,
Right.
How many of them like are, were really like ride or die of this franchise? They just caught on to the wave, right? You want to be a part of something. I get it. But like, so a lot of that resentment, I think, is coming from people who are just fans of winning. And they just want the team to win. And the team's not winning right now. But I think that like really like diehard Blue Jays fans, like the non-casual Blue Jays fans, are really invested in this core.
Yeah, and I do think that there are more people jumping on the bandwagon right now. And maybe to call it a bandwagon overstates it, but people are...
It's a bandwagon to 100 losses.
Yeah, right. So that is the wrong word. But people are...
Jumping on the Titanic.
They're getting more intrigued, I think, by this team.
Yeah.
And I don't have any science to back that up, but I get the sense that there is more interest, more genuine interest in this team, as there should be.
There's nothing else going on, man.
Yeah, and it's a much more interesting team, too.
Yeah.
Like, compare the relative status of the Jays and Leafs or Raptors, right? In May, when the Jays are starting Ryan Fierabend and they have the since-released Alan Hansen playing every day, and the Raptors and Leafs are in the playoff hunt. To now, okay, those teams are done, and the Jays are actually kind of fun to watch.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're great, because they're obviously not. They're still going to lose more than they win, but they're kind of fun to watch.
Well, you compare them like in baseball terms to where the Detroit Tigers are right now, or like the Kansas City Royals, right?
Oh,
like
my goodness.
You see the Blue Jays go in, against these like fellow 100 loss clubs and like beat the hell out of them. And you see where those teams are, and you see where their farm systems are at, and you see how much further, like the Baltimore Orioles, like how much further away they are from contention. Like, the Blue Jays don't have like Chris Davis making $800 million and getting in fights with the manager.
How about that?
Right?
Man.
The Blue Jays don't, and hitting like a $180. Like Blue Jays don't have that. Like the Blue Jays are, if not one of the youngest teams in baseball, and have some of the like 2 legitimate, like this year, top 10 MLB prospects playing for them every single day.
And the cool thing is now Vlad and Bo are producing like all-stars.
Yeah.
Whether that sustains itself, who knows? I mean, they could both slump and end the season in, kind of mediocre fashion. I don't expect that. I think they're both really good, but they are right now playing at an all-star level.
This is At the Letters, brought to you by the all-new 2019 Ford Ranger. And let me tell you, Ben, that Ford Ranger comes with an available terrain management system, which automatically calibrates engine responsiveness, transmission gearing, and vehicle control systems to provide the optimum traction, drivability, and performance. Wow. So the Blue Jays can hit. We know that. We have seen over the last 30 to 45 days, you were mentioning Teoscar Hernandez has come around, Randall Grichuk hitting some bombs. Obviously, the kids are playing well. But run production, only half the equation. Run prevention, the other half. And that is where the Blue Jays are lacking throughout the organization right now. I think the Blue Jays management would disagree with that and say, we have a lot of young pitchers that we're really excited about. I think a lot of us are saying, all right, we'll wait and see, right? Like, let's see what these kids become. But you hear about the waves of pitching talent, and the Blue Jays have now kind of started identifying the players that are going to be in each of those waves. Is there anybody in the current wave, so Baraki, Reed Foley, Waguespack, Thornton, the pitchers who are here now, who you think will be parts of the next competitive Blue Jays team? Like, have they found a diamond in that rough?
I don't know if you'd say Thornton is a diamond, but Thornton is someone that you'd want on your staff, I think. He looks like someone who could capably be a back-end starter, and you never know. Maybe there's room to improve beyond that. Reed Foley looks like a reliever to me, based on what we've seen so far. Barucki looks like another potential back-end guy. His health status notwithstanding, we're not exactly certain how that's going to play out in the next couple of weeks, but those guys look like pieces to me. Pannone potentially, reliever, long man. I haven't necessarily seen enough to see him as a starter. And Waguespack looks interesting as well. So, what about you? Do you kind of view that group similarly? Is there a different perspective on your end?
Intrigued by Waguespack.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's something there, man.
Yeah.
Like he's got like a good body for starting. Like he throws a bunch of different pitches. Got good control. He's got good mound presence. You really see him growing, start to start, and learning. Can you imagine if for Aaron Loop they end up with like an innings eating back end starter? But so he is like intriguing to me, and Barucki if healthy, but I mean the health thing is going to be a question until it's not with him really. But like Barucki if healthy is a guy who great, he could be a solid back end starter. Reed Foley reliever. Thornton I could see swingman. I could see him working as a reliever. I wonder how he would look in 1 inning bursts. I think you keep him as a starter for now, obviously, but the inconsistency has been apparent with him, and there have been times where he's taken the mound and he's looked great and he's carved up really good offenses, and there's times where he's taken the mound and he's just hasn't been that competitive, and he's been tipping his pitches or he's been leaving way too many pitches over the heart of the plate. It's just a lot going on with his delivery, man, and he's trying to do something very difficult, and I praise him for that. But trying to maintain that delivery and all that movement and everything that he does pre-pitch to get the ball to the plate over 80 or 90 pitches, it's tough, right? Who's the other one that Thomas Pannone, long guy, I think he could have some, again, another kind of swingman type. Like of those 5 though, I don't see a front of the rotation guy.
No.
I think that if you get one good back of the rotation starter out of there, whether it's Waguespack or a healthy Barucki, I mean, that's probably the ceiling of that group.
Wow. I mean, I think you'd hope to get 2 back-end starters out. Maybe Barucki and Thornton can do that, or Barucki and Waguespack. One thing with Waguespack, you look at some of his advanced numbers, fastball spin rate, curve spin rate, expected weighted on base. These are not favorable. Like he's in the bottom 20% of pitchers in those departments.
So the Astros aren't going to be trading for him?
No, don't expect that to happen. But yeah, it's still early, and hey, to his credit, he's going out there, he's getting results, and I think it's already a win, that trade to get him for Aaron Loop. It's already a success.
It is already a win.
Yeah, but then you have these other groups lower in the minor leagues, and I think when Atkins and Shapiro talk about trying to find 3 or 4 really good starters from this group, they're hoping that some of them emerge from those lower levels.
Yeah, I think the next wave is really promising.
Yeah.
Like Nate Pearson, obviously, right? Like Patrick Murphy, you keep hearing people talk about him as a potential front of the rotation arm, and obviously he's had to go through a bit of an adjustment with his delivery because it was illegal. But if he's able to get that down and get past the little health thing that he's going through right now, like that's somebody that people feel really high about. Julian Merriweather is just such a question mark.
Yeah.
He hasn't had the smoothest recovery from Tommy John surgery, but when he has been pitching, he's been throwing 100 miles an hour. So that's you'll work with that. That works. I don't know. Is Anthony Kay going to be something, right? There's just some. It's more, and maybe it's just because we've now seen Reed Foley and Thornton and Waguespack at the major league level, so we've kind of seen how they do against that level of competition. So the other guys are still kind of dreaming on, but I would say I am more intrigued by kind of the next wave of pitching talent that's coming up.
Yeah, without a doubt. And Pearson is someone who can sway the Blue Jays' fortunes probably as much as anyone.
Yeah.
To the extent that one player can do that, just because he could actually be an ace. Like he actually could be, let's say, their Garrett Cole.
Right.
And you don't see a lot of guys in this system with that potential that's evident. And I think you could make a convincing counter argument or counterpoint to that by saying that some of the best starting pitchers in Major League Baseball right now were not regarded as top prospects, whether it's Charlie Morton or Matthew Boyd or even Corey Kluber. these are guys who weren't all that heralded coming up, and yet they've had huge impacts at the major league level.
I feel like the rarest commodity in the game is the like Scherzer, Kershaw, like Greinke, like ace of aces, right? Like that's such an exclusive club. And I feel like if you could, like if you took, a poll of MLB executives and it was like, okay, you can add one thing to your team, it would be, okay, I want that ace, 200 innings, 2 ERA, like 10 K per nine. Like I want that guy, right? Like because that like every time out, every 5 days, he's gonna give you a really good chance to win. Because like we're in this area of baseball now where like offense is like through the roof, right? Like every night, like there's 9-10 runs being given up, and somebody's allowing these runs, right? You're gonna set a home run record this year by like 600 bombs. Somebody's giving those up.
Yeah.
Like it's going on somebody's record. So like you've got this like league of, and with the way bullpens are managed now, you've got this like league of 5 and dive guys, right? Like I just feel like the standard of pitching is kind of. I should look into this like more about like how the league averages in terms of ERA and like K per nine stuff have like changed. Like I bet you K per nine's gone up, ERA
For sure
has gone up as well though, right? So it's like more they're striking out more guys, but also allowing more runs somehow. So I feel like to find that Pearson type, right? What Pearson could be. That's so rare, and it makes it such an interesting kind of case study for the Blue Jays because they have to be like really purposeful in how they bring him along and how they develop him and how many innings he throws and how they monitor his fatigue and his workload and like all these things, right? Like, and how many innings he jumps up from year to year. Last year, through such a like hitch in things, right? Like such a stick in the spokes with, the arm injury, which wasn't like, ligaments, wasn't labrum, but it held him out for almost the entire season with a broken bone. So how do you progress him having missed that? Like, is he here already right now? If that hadn't happened, I wonder.
Yeah, it's
right?
possible.
So it's going to be so interesting to watch how they bring him along because he could develop into one of the rarest assets in baseball.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that potential is so intriguing. And I think at the same time, the Blue Jays also have to prepare for the possibility that he doesn't reach that potential, which is kind of, it's a little bit devastating to think along those lines, but you can't assume that he's going to be an ace. He might have Tommy John or some other injury, takes another ball off of his shin, and he's out for another 6 months. So you need to have a plan B in place, and I think that's where all these arms come in. The Blue Jays are hoping that enough of them can emerge and become solid major league pieces that they will be okay at least, even if Pearson doesn't become that. And then you have to supplement in free agency. And I don't think we're going to see them be super aggressive on that front this offseason. We could see it, within a couple of years where they start to be bigger players in free agency once they know exactly what they have here. But yeah, Pearson, as intriguing as he is, can't be the only path to a contending Blue Jays team.
No, and maybe Eric Pardinho becomes the next Marcus Stroman.
Yeah.
Maybe Zach Logue or Joey Murray becomes something, right? Like maybe Jency Diaz is this like ground ball machine all of a sudden. Didn't have his greatest debut, but the fact that the club even trusted him to come up and like make his MLB debut this year says something about where they think he is, coming straight from Double-A. Like they thought he was capable and they thought he was ready for that. They wanted to challenge him with that. So maybe those things happen. Most likely, you're gonna have to supplement externally. Most likely, you're going to have to go free agency or trade, right? You're going to have to make your Chris Sale deal, right? And you're going to have to package a couple prospects you like to get a front of the line starter, or you're going to have to give a guy probably more money in term than you're comfortable with in free agency to get a starting pitcher to come here. Kind of interesting to hear Mark Shapiro talk yesterday about how that process could even begin this offseason in terms of adding starting pitching. And I don't think that means Garrett Cole or Dallas Keuchel, but do you think that could mean like Rick Porcello or Kyle Gibson? Like, do you think that even like that middle tier of free agent starter is something the Blue Jays might look at this offseason as they try to kind of build up this rotation?
They'll definitely look at it. I mean, they have to. And I think Zach Wheeler would fit in that group as well. Maybe between Keuchel and Cole. Wheeler's been pretty good this year. But I think that if you're the Jays, you absolutely have to consider these guys and talk to them and see if there's middle ground for a deal, because they just don't have enough pitching right now. I'm looking at their projected rotation on MLB depth charts. They have Wilmer Font listed as one of their starters.
Throwing 97.
Yeah, he's looking good.
What more do you want?
Well, maybe like an actual starting pitcher.
Maybe a third inning.
Yeah. That would be nice. So I think that there's absolutely room to add. The Blue Jays have a lot of payroll opening up. They have a need on the pitching side. They will add starting pitching. They will add relievers this offseason. I would think there's an easy case for shopping a little higher than the bargain basement types. We'll see if they do it.
I just wonder if they will, because I don't think the Blue Jays are going to win next year. I think the Blue Jays, like, the most optimistically think, like, oh, maybe we surprise some teams and we're in the wild card race, right? But, like, the Blue Jays aren't going to be ready to, like, win the American League East next year.
Definitely, if they don't add pitching, they won't be.
Right? I think they'll, I don't know. I think they'll, like, just where things stand today. Maybe you could be a 500 team next year, right? And you could take a nice step in the right direction, and you're not a 100-loss team. You're not an embarrassment. You're better, and then you build off into 2021. Where you're like, all right, we're going for it, right? But next year, like, are you really going to go out and sign Zach Wheeler to a 4-year deal this offseason and try to project forward to what he's going to be in 2021 or 2022? Like, because that's such a tough game to play with starting pitchers, right? Injuries happen. Like, the Yankees didn't think J Happ wasn't going to be good. They thought he was going to be good, and they'd sign him as a free agent, and it hasn't worked out that well for them, right? So, like, it's a risk, man, with, like, the limited resources that you have to play with. I think the most likely scenario we see is a couple more, like, bets on, like, bounce back guys like Matt Shoemaker-esque, or like, hey, Clayton Richard is available. Like, let's bring him in. He'll eat some innings for us. I know it's uninspiring, but, like, do you really, like, what about this front office, or what has told you that they're going to go out and, like, grab even a Rick Porcello?
No, you're right. I mean, you look at their track record. It's been one of very conservative spending.
Yeah.
So until we see a departure from that, it's hard to predict a departure from that. But, man, you've got to do better than Clayton Richard. You really do. And to answer your question, yeah, I'd have no problem going after a Zach Wheeler type. And just as there's the downside,
I wouldn't either. I just don't think they will.
Yeah, I'm not predicting Wheeler.
Go ahead. Sorry, the downside of Wheeler with injury and
or
how is he going to perform in 2021?
Or even looking back at last year, J Happ, right, who you mentioned as someone who's disappointed as a starting pitcher. Well, on the other hand, you have a guy like Lance Lynn who has pitched so well.
One of the best starters in baseball.
One of the best starters in baseball. Another guy who wasn't a top prospect. And Lance Lynn was available for like $30 million to the Rangers. So there are values to be found out there. And I would expect the Jays to try to replicate the Lance Lynn deal as opposed to trying to replicate the Patrick Corbin deal.
Miles Mikolas is another example.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah,
with
really
the Cardinals
nice
picking
pickup.
him up.
But they need to do something like that. It can't just be bottom feeding.
Can't just be Clay Buchholz.
No.
Let's conclude with the Mark Shapiro avail. We sat in a boardroom with him, with the other writers and broadcasters of this team for more than an hour on Thursday. You had the piece at sportsnet.ca just kind of rounding up some of the takeaways. Where would you like to begin? Like, you choose the topic that stands out to you.
Well, we already talked about the pitching side of things and where the Blue Jays might go. So I think that was probably the biggest takeaway from me, was just the way the Blue Jays are going to approach free agency. He talked also about high performance, which was interesting to me. And I thought it was maybe a throwaway comment, but it was interesting to me that Shapiro said if he was going to do it again, he would not call high performance, which I just found that interesting. I know you've written a lot about high performance. Clearly, the actual function of what high performance does is so useful.
Triggered. Go ahead. I'm triggered. Go ahead.
Sorry to go here.
No, finish your thought.
So it's so useful, right? You're helping players eat better, sleep better, feel better, deal with the mental side and stress of the game. And you're doing this in a more comprehensive way than they did before. And it was a new thing for baseball. And so they called it high performance, which is a European name. So it's different. It's not baseball. It's the equivalent of a rookie swinging hard at a pitch here. It's disrupting the culture. And players didn't like it. People within the Blue Jays organization and outside of the organization didn't like it. Not everyone, but there was criticism for sure. And part of that, in Shapiro's opinion, was the name. So I just thought that was interesting for him to say, oh, yeah, we would have named it something else. Maybe like a division of sports science. Or I forget what it was that he had suggested as an alternative, as my mic was off at that point. But just basically, calling it something else that would draw less attention to it. So what do you think about that?
I like nothing enrages me more
Then what?
than the pushback against like optimizing nutrition and sleep and recovery and understanding workload and like understanding how to get the most out of your players. Like to bring it down to like, okay, so the problem is semantics. Like we would have called it sports science instead of high performance. Like there's no problem with this. It's new for baseball. I get it. But this is not new for Olympic athletes, soccer and rugby athletes in Europe, NFL athletes, right? Like this is where sports is going. You can get on this train or not, but this is where it's like everything in baseball. It's like advanced statistics, right? It's like wins above replacement. You say, oh, what are back in my day, like we had RBIs and that was enough. It tells me everything I need to know, and pitcher wins and what are these advanced numbers? And now, like if you don't, use OPS and WAR, like you're not even working in this game. Like what are you doing? You don't even, so it's the same thing. Like the game is changing. The world is changing. Like we are progressing and moving forward, and we're trying to drag you people with us, and you're making it really difficult. There is nothing wrong with the high performance department. I know I'm on an island. Like I know I'm in the minority, right?
Oh, you're
like,
definitely in the minority.
I know
even now, even 4 years in, you are.
I understand I'm in the minority on this, but like check back with me with where the sport is in 5 to 10 years.
100%. And I'm with you. Like high performance very simply just helps the players do their job better.
Yeah.
So obviously, if we had a podcasting high performance that would just give us coffees at the exact right times and make sure we were fully rested, we would take that.
Let's talk to Rogers about that.
Yeah. So it's pretty simple, but I do think it's like it does come down to the way that the Blue Jays tried to get people on board. And as you said, there was a feeling of dragging people on. And in hindsight, I think the Blue Jays probably could have done that better as far as easing that transition, but there was always going to be a kind of disruptive aspect to it where people weren't going to like it.
It's baseball, man. It's like the electronic strike zone, right? It's going to happen. We're going to get it. And people are still like, oh, we need the human element. We want umpires with it. And as soon as they bring in that electronic strike zone, it's going to be like, oh, balls and strikes are called perfectly now? Amazing.
I do kind of like umpires, though. Just for the entertainment.
You're not going to lose the umpire. He's just not going to have to judge the exact placement of a little ball that is moving at 100 miles an hour in an unpredictable fashion.
Right.
Within like an imaginary box that he is like judging just through his own subjective eyes.
But think of the ejections, the manager ejections that we'd lose.
You'll still argue like safe and out calls. You can still argue, I don't know. Do you think baseball managers are going to find something to argue? And also, is that like the thing? Is like, oh, let's not get the calls right for the sake of seeing a 65-year-old man throw a temper tantrum.
It is pretty fun seeing those tantrums, though.
So watch them on YouTube, man. Like it's the same. It's like this. It's everything with like baseball that like bothers me. It's like back in my day, we'd play 162 and we had RBIs mattered. Like back in your day, players played with bags of cocaine in their pockets. Okay, like let's talk about what your day was.
Slide into second base and then have a little pick me up.
Have a little key bump and get on your way. Like back in your day, like doctors smoked cigarettes, right? Like back in your day, things were a bit different than they are today. It's 2019. We're trying to move forward. It bothers me to no end. Like something that is very common in other sports, right? And in other industries that, there is just like this sect of like old bitter baseball people who just like won't allow it to move forward. If someone like Mark Shapiro can buy into this, Mark Shapiro, who like however you feel about him, has worked in this game for like 3 decades, right? Like talks about when he used to make trades with like, it's the same thing with making trades, right? They used to flip through media guides, right? And they'd have like a scout who saw like a prospect play 3 times. This guy's this guy. This is the guy. Subjectively, I saw him with my eyes and I know that he's going to be great. Well, you have no way of like objectively measuring that. So what, right? And that's how they used to make trades. Now you understand spin rates. You're just bringing them up. You understand bat speed. You understand, swing planes and all these things. So you can better evaluate players. It's the same thing with optimizing recovery and making sure your players get better sleep. Like the day of playing 162, it's out. It's over.
It's done.
It's over. Because you don't win a championship in May. You don't win a World Series in July. You win it in October. So you need your players to be like as fresh and as fit and as productive as possible come October. And you need to figure out a way to play them enough over the 6-month season to qualify for October baseball, but also to manage their workload enough so that they can be at their best come the playoffs.
Oh yeah, the next Cal Ripken Jr. when he comes up will be resting day game after a night game and on playing one game of a doubleheader, and he'll end up with 145 games played every year.
You got guys playing 162 games in 184 days,
Yep.
right? So what?
Oh, yeah.
You guys have and they're traveling across time zones. They're getting on planes. Their sleep's being disrupted. They're playing in Tampa, in St. Petersburg last week. The Blue Jays played a 10-inning game and then 14 hours later started another game. Do you think players really had enough time to recover and rest? After that, no, of course not.
Zero chance.
So you want to keep your players on the field and healthy and as productive as possible. Why wouldn't you optimize everything around their workload management? And this is Toronto, where you just saw Kawhi Leonard, right? The word management. You just saw load management help the Raptors win a championship. You just saw it in action. This is there's no unturning this. This is the way it's going.
Yeah. So if Vladdy rests here and there, it's fine. It's really, really
It's
fine.
totally fine.
Yeah. Even if Bo Bichette rests in the middle of a hit streak or a hot streak, that's okay. They're 20, they're 21, but still you want to make sure these guys are healthy. You're playing the long game here. I think, yeah, you make a lot of good points there, no question. And I think you're right. There is an old guard mentality that's RBI back in my day, but it's been a notable shift in the last, say, 15, 20 years. Those guys aren't the ones making the decisions anymore.
No.
They're more pushed to the edges. But the ones making the decisions, I think, by and large, are the ones like Mark Shapiro who are determined to be progressive. Whether that, in the Blue Jays case, we don't know if that's going to lead to winning or not. So far it hasn't, but they have been progressive. And that's what you find by and large in front offices. Because if you don't, you're going to be dusted by the competition, and you're not going to win, and you're not going to keep your job.
Quit resisting progress. People don't like change. I get it. But the world is changing. Times are changing. Just like we're gonna look back on, this is a tangent, but on now, and we're gonna be oh, we had these little radiation devices that we held up to our brains all the time, right? And then put in our pockets right beside our reproductive organs. People did that, right? Just everybody smoked in the 60s, right? Doctors were is something's wrong with you? You gotta, here's some nicotine. Anyway, it's a tangent. What else? What else stood out? What do you want to do? Dunedin? What do you want to do? Rogers Center?
After that, it all kind of falls flat.
Where do you want to go?
Dunedin, here, rapid fire. Dunedin delays in the renovations. Rogers Center, nothing happening.
Why is nothing happening with Rogers Center?
It's a big undertaking.
Yeah.
I mean, put it this way, I think if Mark Shapiro was the sole stakeholder involved, there would be renovations happening now. But there is the city potentially, the province potentially, and of course, Rogers ownership, which is a big company with a lot of different interests. This is a big expense, one that ties into other ventures of Rogers and is not just a simple thing. So it's not just saying hey, do you guys want to change the price of popcorn at the concessions? Sure, let's do that. That's totally Blue Jays contained. It doesn't affect other aspects of the business. But Rogers Center is such a big building. It ties in potentially to other projects and is way more expensive. So my sense is that it's just tied to other variables that make the decision making more complex and a little more slow than anticipated.
I feel the shift that we've seen with the Rogers Center renovations is it's gone from a Mark Shapiro project to a Rogers project. Right? Whereas it was, Mark Shapiro was saying, all right, we want to open this up and we want to maybe change the field to turn this way and we want to have this concourse here and these are all the things we want to have, this, that, and the other different fan experiences. Now it's, if you ask them about it, it's ask Rogers, right? It's in Rogers' hands. So does that mean that Rogers has other priorities right now? That they're whether they in 5G or expanding the cell phone network, the network, and all these things that I don't even understand.
Right.
Sure. Does that mean that there is a greater project that involves the city and the province, that involves land around the Rogers Center and potential parks, whether it's the rail deck park or redevelopments and things like that? Are there other things tied up in this? Maybe. I just think that that's the shift that I've noticed, has gone from a Mark Shapiro project to a project above his head.
Man, it was last year that we were at a Pitch Talks event with Shapiro, and he was talking about how Rogers Center is dungeness in some places, it needs to be opened up, and he was talking like someone who sees change in the future. And now we're a year plus beyond that point, and we haven't seen change. We haven't heard of where that change might head. And Shapiro's not making those types of comments anymore. So it does seem as though some things have changed.
Yeah, and I think the thing with Rogers Center is like you would never sacrifice that location.
No.
You know, like where it is, like right downtown, like heart of the city on the subway line, like a ton of people live around there, a ton of businesses around. Like you don't want to end up in a situation where the Toronto Blue Jays play at Downsview Park. You know,
I would think not.
you want them to stay like where they are right now. So it's like, okay, so how do you manage either renovating this place or like knocking it down and building a new place while keeping that, like, okay, so you got to keep playing the games every year, right? They got to be played somewhere, and you got to, it's like trying to change the roof, right? Like this, you can't really work on it that much in winter, right? Because it's cold and there's ice and everything, and like the roof's got to open and close, and while they've been replacing this roof, it's got to still be operational. Like these are kind of it's like with the netting, right? Like they're going to have a really hard time extending that netting all the way to the foul pole. It might even be impossible. It's like just engineering wise because of the way this thing is constructed. So like there are all of these challenges. So I think the solution the Blue Jays need to find is how do we get a modern ballpark that is, that is appeals to a wide, spectrum of fans that a lot of people can enjoy and people want to go to, and that is a destination in that location and keeping it there. Because like some of the stuff they're doing right now, like refreshing the 100 level and changing the roof and this stuff, like it's going to make it better, but really you need dramatic changes in order to bring that thing into 2020.
Yeah, it's maintenance versus kind of a new vision for the place. And yeah, so far we have yet to hear what that new vision might be. I will say on a smaller scale, it was good to see that they're going to extend the netting.
Yes.
That's a positive development.
It's another one of those things like, oh, it's going to block my view. And in my day, we had the shut up. Shut up.
Yeah, they used to play without batting helmets too, but
right?
Now they do that.
Goalies in hockey, they didn't wear masks,
Yeah.
Like shut the hell up. Like we're going to get netting it's one of those things where if tomorrow or say in a game tonight, like some little child got brained, tomorrow there would be netting in 30 ballparks. It's one of those things, right? Where everyone's just waiting for something terrible to happen before they take a preventative measure.
But actually, the scary thing is that there have been those incidents and it hasn't happened. So that's where, no
one's died.
I'd have to check the facts on that.
Has someone died from
I would have to check the facts. Yeah. I don't know offhand. But there have been serious injuries that have happened.
It even just seems like a liability issue. Like you've got like people at your ballpark who are like on their phones and like they're drinking beer, right? Like they're intoxicated. Yep. And like so many like we were just talking about like, having different areas for people and different things for them to look at and do.
Yeah.
So much of the ballpark experience now is geared towards anything but the game.
Sure.
Right? Like give me something to do other than watching this terrible, boring game. Like, give me a bar, right? Like, give me like big video boards flashing big bright lights in my face, right? Like everything in a ballpark is designed to distract you. Meanwhile, you have projectiles like coming into the crowd at over 100 miles an hour to, towards distracted, intoxicated people. Like it even seems like a liability to me.
Yeah, no doubt. So it is good to see that the Jays are going to add that netting. I will say
they're going to add the netting, and for a day, people are going to say, "Oh, like my view is obstructed," and it's changed. 2 days later, nothing.
Yeah,
no one's going to say anything.
Right. I mean, they've already extended it to some extent, and it has led to zero complaints that I've heard. I think it's too bad that they're not doing it this year. You see teams like the Astros moving more quickly, but it wouldn't be the first time that the Astros have been ahead of the Blue Jays on something. So.
Anyway, netting sort of thing is going to be in 30 ballparks and nobody's going to talk about it. It's going to be the new normal. I think that like out of the Shapiro avail, like it's something that he said in the past, but I think it is probably the most applicable thing to where this team is going, to what fans really care about, which is winning, which is, he has said again, as he has said many times in the past, there is going to be a point where we have to outpace revenue with our payroll, where we are going to have to, whether that is paying Vladimir Guerrero Jr. through arbitration when he gets really expensive, whether that's extending Bo Bichette, whether that's going into free agency, right? Like whether that's taking on another team's contract and trade, whether that's like, hey, there's a starting pitcher in free agency who could really help us, who's a win now piece, who's like a 45 win player, and we are going to have to go beyond our comfort zone in terms of total spend and term for this player to bring him to Toronto, because you're always going to pay a premium for a starting pitcher to come to Toronto in free agency. The Blue Jays are going to need to do that. And at some point, like this incremental game that they're playing, right? Like just kind of finding little ways to raise the floor. And, we got a little value here. We turn Aaron Loop into Jacob Wagasback. And, Aledimus Diaz became Trent Thornton. Like it's these little incremental gains are great. But at some point, the Blue Jays are going to have to take a big risk. And they're going to have to take a big swing. And they're going to have to make a big, impactful move. And Mark Shapiro, again, is on record as saying, yeah, we're going to do that. When the time comes, we are going to do that. So if in 2 years, if he doesn't, that's when you can sharpen up your pitchforks, right? And light up your torches. But until that happens, we just have him on record now saying, yeah, we're going to do it.
Right. And now we're entering the 5th off season of Atkins and Shapiro as the leadership for this team. And it doesn't sound as though they're going to do that within the first 5 off seasons of their leadership. I think if it doesn't start to happen by the 6th off season, then you have to have some real questions. I think this offseason, maybe it's more modest. Maybe it's more in that Lance Lynn territory we were talking about. But if you get to entering the 2021 season, at that point, don't you have to be kind of looking to push and looking to advance things?
That's still the season that I'm looking at. And let's see how things play out. But I still think the 2021 is the year when the Blue Jays need to be we are a contender.
Right.
I don't think...
If they're not contending by then, come on.
No,
how long do you get?
No, exactly. I do think that's... the thing that could, change would be, Nate Pearson's arm exploded and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., went off to Peru to do ayahuasca and, Bo Bichette, shattered every bone in his body. Crazy stuff happens. But, it would take something like that. 2021 has to be the year. That's the year that I'm looking at. I don't think 2020 is the year. 2020, 500 team, great. Contending for a wild card, wow, that happened fast. I think 2021's the year.
Agreed.
That's been Nicholson-Smith. I'm Arden Zwelling. Want to thank our producer, Amal Delich. Want to thank Shoel Lee. Want to thank Stefan Perret for working the cameras. Want to thank all of you for listening. We'll talk to you next week on At The Letters.